a program that's known for winning national championships or has won one recently in our, era, but yet has been struggling to get back to that type of class. Billy Napier kicking things off and trying to.
Look, they've been in the SEC championship game a bunch.
Well, they were there a year ago with Dan Mullen.
Yeah.
They're not even close to Tennessee territory.
In the SEC championship game since 2007, which is when Withrow and I met.
Well,
so
SEC championship
and we're old
versus,
now, and we've had an old friendship.
Yeah.
So,
but the comparison is, I don't hear 10 wins for the first time since 2007. I hear 98.
But
that's the bar.
Here's the difference. Tennessee fans. Here's why they're not going in Tennessee territory.
Okay.
Tennessee fans will be thrilled with 8 wins this year, okay, because of where they've been. Florida fans, if they win 8, they'd be asking, why do you not win 10 and beat Georgia and win the division? And a year from now, the expectation for Napier is win the division. That's the expectations of Florida.
They could be 1-3 in October.
Yeah, look, I think for Tennessee, Pittsburgh is a gravy game. And what I mean by that is, even if you beat Pittsburgh, if you come back home and lose to Florida, a lot of people are going to be very upset. Because what Tennessee has to be able to do, Tennessee gets judged by Tennessee fans on Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Alabama, the games by and large have not been close for 15 years. Georgia, they've actually had some success, relatively speaking, not great success.
Success relative to Georgia's overall success Tennessee's had. You're right.
And then Florida has been an unmitigated disaster. And Tennessee's lost to a lot of bad Florida teams.
They found a way to lose.
To teams that are not good.
Yep.
And so for a lot of people, I think what's going to go on is, regardless of what happens in Pittsburgh, the Florida game is going – and I would say the same thing about Florida with Utah. That's great. You beat Utah. It's a good debut for Billy Napier. But ultimately, Florida is going to want to beat Kentucky and Tennessee, right? So if they don't beat Kentucky and Tennessee, there's going to be a lot of nervousness. You're right. They could start 1-3. I mean, it's not an easy out-of-the-gate scenario. I just have seen Tennessee choke so many times.
Me too.
So many times against mediocre Florida Gator teams that I find it hard to believe that they're just going to come out and put it on Florida and whip them like they should.
Well, I think the big difference is the expectation level of Florida fans has yet to change. Tennessee fans have had to readjust their expectations around the program.
Well,
now, if Georgia continues on this pace, they're going to have to readjust their expectations and hope for second in the SEC East, just like what Tennessee's and Kentucky are vying for this year.
Where I think you can analogize things is Florida has swung and missed a bunch on football hires, right? So
and Mullen was a layup. We all thought that.
Ron Zook replacing Spurrier was a mess, okay? They go get Urban Meyer. He solves everything. But then Will Muschamp comes in, and he was the most – he's a coach in waiting at Texas. Everybody in the country wanted Will Muschamp. He comes in, doesn't get it done. All right, well, you're sitting around. You're trying to figure out what the solution is. And you had that incredible sort of dynamic where Scott Frost, Dan Mullen was going to be Tennessee's coach until all of a sudden Chip Kelly decides to go out to UCLA, and Florida really felt like they were going to get Chip Kelly. And so if they had gotten Chip Kelly, then Dan Mullen would have been here, and it would have been intriguing to see what Dan Mullen did here. And again, up until October of last year, people were like, hey, Dan Mullen's done a pretty good job at Florida.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about that whole scenario? Florida reached out to Scott Frost initially for that job before Dan Mullen. Scott Frost would have been better off staying at UCF in hindsight.
Mullen was their third choice, but that's what set off the UT Greg Schiano implosion. Was Dan Mullen was all set to be here until Florida whiffed on Chip Kelly and Scott Frost.
Dan Mullen was a safety net for Tennessee until that happened.
And then the Scott Strickland, the AD at Florida, knew, obviously, Dan Mullen very well from Mississippi State and thought this is the ultimate safety valve. Now, Mike White appears to have done the same thing with Josh Heupel, right? He went out and tried to find a replacement.
And then went with what he knew.
Yeah, for Jeremy Pruitt, and went with a guy that he felt very confident about. Now, I would say that Heupel exceeded expectations in year one. Certainly, Hendon Hooker came out of nowhere to throw over 30 touchdown passes and only 3 picks. Nobody saw that happening.